Welcome to the IEEE RAS manufacturing workshop. So this is the first time that we are hosting online, digital, and it'll be led by me and Christine, who is AVP of the IAB Society. And once again, welcome. And as you can see already through the LinkedIn post and other medias, we'll be having three different speakers who will be discussing about their journey through manufacturing, and we'll be having two breakout sessions in which each you guys can discuss any kind of questions that you have with the speakers. And all the speakers, like every breakout rooms will be just having one speaker, so you can choose which one do you want to discuss on what topic, and that will be a wrap over at the end. So, quick intro about me. I'm a robotics engineer working at the National Robotorium. I did my master's in UK from University of Bristol, and it's been 5 years since I stepped into robotics field, which I'm quite enjoying. And it's been 3 years since I started working in UK. And our next is Christine, who will be the lead for our intro and to talk a little more about IEEE RAS itself. Over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Harry. And Harry's the one who's organised today. So thank you in advance for all of that. And we're super excited to do that. So yeah, just let me introduce myself really briefly. And we're going to do a very quick introduction to just IEEE RAS for those who don't know about it and what the manufacturing workshops are. And then we'll turn over to our three speakers. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I'm also a mechanical engineer from a long time ago. I'm actually based in the Netherlands and have my own robotics tactile sensing startup. And I'm very familiar with entrepreneurship. So as part of the IEEE RAS, there is the Industry Activities Board. And on that Industry Activities Board, we do entrepreneurship and education activities. And that's what this is about. And I personally have set up contract manufacturing in over 6 different countries. I was in China last month and I will be going there next month. Okay, thank you, Harry.
Sorry, just yeah.
Okay, for those who aren't familiar, IEEE RAS has got a number of key industry events, ICRA being a very important one. Where this year it was in Atlanta, last year it was in Yokohama. And for those who don't know, it's coming to Vienna in 26. And if you're an IEEE RAS member, then you get a bigger discount off your ICRA ticket than your membership costs you. So if you plan to go, then do that. And you can become a member via the IEEE RAS website. Okay. So as part of this, and over the last few years, we've put together a bit of a curriculum around robotics manufacturing. There are lots of different things that people want to do if they're creating a robotics company for the first time, including technical leadership and business leadership. But actually, when it comes to robotics, because the hardware is hard, there's often a third wheel to your organization, which many people underestimate. Harry? And that's really what we're focusing on today. And this is when you go from actually making 1s and 2s and getting something working in small numbers, actually getting to the point where you need to be doing manufacturing at scale, compliant with quality standards globally, for example, and safety standards globally. So we have created this robotics deep tech manufacturing checklist. This is all available on the IEEE RAS's website. You can go for either the 147-page document or the 2-page document, depending on what you're wanting to look at. And these materials are all made for you to be shared. Okay. So from my experience, I've just got a couple of my kind of pitfalls and things to watch out for. Whenever you're going to manufacture something for the first time, you often need to spend money on physical tools, jigs and fixtures and tooling to make what you want to make. So there's a big, big difference between the strategy you choose if you're making 1, 100, 10,000 or 1 million. So be very, very clear about your business case and make sure that you're using the right manufacturing strategy that matches the stage that you're in. And hardware also changes. So you also learn a lot from your first production runs, whether those are pre-production runs. So make sure that you have an opportunity to also update and change. Iterate early and often. I also encourage you to do as much digitally before you go physical, but prototype frequently and often, and make sure that you then are making the right number of parts to make sure you've got your learning and move to the next stage. It's also really important to understand what kind of company you want to be, what core competences you want to have in-house. Are you actually going to set up your own manufacturing, for example, or are you going to go to a factory that does that and that's what their core competence is? So this make-buy decision you will have to do many, many times along the way. So you'll hear from our experts today about how they've made those choices and how it's important for you to decide what kind of company you want to have, what you can afford to build, where you want to concentrate your resources and build your own competences. As you move to manufacturing and begin to scale your capabilities, you also need to invest in other parts of your business. So there's a saying that you build product, people, and processes all together in a sort of balance. So it's important that one doesn't run too far ahead and that you build as a well-balanced organization. And that can include understanding quality and compliance as you grow and bringing them in at the right stages. For example, when you're doing an ISO, you need people who that's their core job, for example. So for every ISO standard you want to comply to, you need headcount. This one is also one which is lessons learned the hard way. Rework is hard. As soon as you start making things in multiple numbers, if you want to make a small change, it's easy to do on 1 or 2. It's less easy to do on 20, 50, and definitely not easy to do as soon as you go above any of those numbers. And my personal pain point is about the 10 mark. If you can kind of adjust 1 or 2, but as soon as you start adjusting 10, it takes a long time and a lot of effort. So be really careful about building, learning, improving, building, learning, improving. Okay. And all of this is just drops in the ocean compared to a whole load of other things. But the experts here today will talk about some of these things. And the focus is not to go into every single thing you need to do as a company. Today is very much a technical conversation focused on the manufacturing. Okay, we run these workshops mainly in person. So if you're going to ROSCon Singapore, we've got a workshop there. If you're going to IROS, we have a workshop there. If you're going to Vienna, we'll have quite a lot of industry activities as part of that trade fair. And we'll be interested in hearing your feedback, and we'll ask for some of that later. Okay, so Harry, back to you.
Sure. So just a quick correction on that. I don't think we'll be doing the ROSCon Singapore this time. We kind of missed it.
We will have a stand.
Yeah, we'll be having a stand, and we'll be giving out from flyers and stuff. And I'll be there in person. So if you guys want to talk anything about it, happy to always talk about robotics and IEEE AIB as well. And yeah, I think we are good to go. The speakers. Cool. Let's start with Ross, if that's all right. Cool. And I'll just give a quick introduction. Ross is from BioLiberty, and he's the CTO, if I'm not wrong. And yes, over to you. And let me know if you want to share the slides, Ross.
Harry, could you share my slides for me? Can you hear me okay, actually?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you good.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
And I think Nicholas has just got up the slides. There you go. Thanks, Nicholas.
Okay, perfect. I don't think I can control them, so yeah. No, thanks very much for inviting me here. Harry, I think go back one slide, please. Yeah, so I think I was going to start with a bit about my background and kind of how I ended up in the position that I'm in at the minute, because um, everyone has their own kind of path to entrepreneurship and how they kind of start their companies and what inspired them to do it. So I thought I'd just give a brief kind of introduction to myself and like where I kind of came from. So um, back in kind of high school and the school days, I was really interested in music and science and technology. And like spent a lot of time like really, you know, understanding physics around sound and acoustics. That led me to do a master's degree in the University of Edinburgh in electronics and electrical engineering, which is brilliant, a 5-year degree. And learned a whole bunch of stuff. And, you know, that's really where I got my introduction to robotics, more in industrial automation initially, and then kind of more into the robotics side of things. And also where I started to dip my toe into kind of more of the business side of things, around startups, you know, what a startup was, how do you, you know, build something. I like building things, but it was really in university where I understood, okay, you need to build things that are actually useful for people, and that people, you know, get value out of. And so I took a course in management, ended up working for a startup in the university, doing a whole bunch of stuff around stem cell characterization. And then after that, I decided, well, I was finishing university and decided actually I've got an idea for a company around supporting people with hand weakness or reduced mobility in their hand. And that's when I started BioLiberty, and went down this kind of route of entrepreneurship. And I've been doing that for the past 5 years now, which is really exciting, frightening at times, but you learn a lot. And hopefully I can share some of that knowledge that I've picked up along the way with you today. So yeah, just a bit more about my role in BioLiberty. So I'm one of the co-founders. There's 4 co-founders. I head up all our technology teams. So I run a hardware team, a software team. We do games design, we do data science. So quite varied, like in terms of the disciplines and the different types of technologies that we have in our product. Our engineering team's up at about between 10 and 15 engineers at the minute. So, and all our engineers are based in the UK, primarily in Scotland. Next slide, please. Yeah, so a bit about BioLiberty, a bit about our mission. So our mission is to give individuals the best chance at recovery from a mobility limiting condition or injury, so that they can reclaim their independence. Next slide, please. So I'll dig into a wee bit about BioLiberty and then I'll get into the manufacturing side. But one of the problems, and as you go through this journey, your problem adapts and changes. I think it was mentioned there at the start. You know, you're always kind of learning stuff, iterating, and it's the same with manufacturing. But yeah, the problem that we saw was there was rising healthcare costs, staffing shortages, and a growing number of people with mobility issues. Kind of specifically, stroke was what we were looking at, which is putting pressure on physical and occupational therapy services. So what do we actually build? So we developed soft robotics. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the field. It's kind of a growing field, and it looks at kind of pneumatically driven robotics is what we do. We gamify therapy, and we also are developing some AI insights and tools from the data that we collect through our robotic system. And the whole goal of this is to help clinicians deliver more effective and efficient therapy. Next slide, please. So yeah, here's a photo of our product. We designed this and built it and manufactured it from scratch. As I said, it's a soft robotic device that goes on the hand and provides an extension force for people that have had a stroke or a neurological condition. It's coupled with a box which has pneumatics in it, a screen, and you can play games and, you know, go through your therapy journey. We also do a lot of stuff on back end. So we have a whole cloud-based system where we collect data. We can track patients' progress remotely. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just a bit more detail on the actual glove. As you can see from a manufacturing point of view, there's quite a lot. We use welding techniques for the glove. we've got pneumatics, we've got electronics, our device is battery powered as well. So we have to do a lot of electrical safety stuff. But yeah, I'm more than happy to answer any questions in the breakout room on the actual product. Next slide, please. So yeah, let's get into manufacturing then. We started manufacturing our product at the start of the year and are kind of ramping it up significantly now. And there's been a whole bunch of learnings and different things that have cropped up. And I understand that like the audience here is kind of quite a broad range of different types of robotics. I understand soft robotics is a very specific area of robotics. So I tried to keep my presentation a bit more high level, and also factor in a couple of the kind of key decisions or key things that I was thinking about along the way whenever I was actually designing the product and thinking about the market as well. Next slide, please. So this is probably the most interesting concept I've seen in my journey, and with knowing lots of other people that develop robotic systems. I think it was mentioned, Christine mentioned it as well. One of the big things in robotics is what I like to call the messy middle. And it's all to do with the kind of ratio between the volume that you're creating and the profitability margin of the device that you're selling. So you can see here that, if you're creating, you have a lot of volume, you have a lot of customers and you're manufacturing at high volume and selling at high volume, and you've got a very high margin, you're in a very kind of fortunate and lucky position. A lot of robotics companies don't kind of get this, at least not on the kind of first iterations of their products. And they're more kind of along this band where you can see the kind of blue circles, where they've got a combination of a bit of volume and an okay margin, or they've got really high volume but a low margin device, and right at the opposite side, super low volume but extremely high margin. But most companies kind of fall in the in between here, and every time they create a new product, they want to push themselves up further up to the right hand side of this. The one place that you definitely don't want to be, and is down at the bottom, low volume. So there's not a lot of interest in your device, and also extremely low margin. And if you're in that position, like, you really need to think about, the robot you're building or the product, or, can you pivot or look at different features to really change that position. But yeah, that's kind of the messy middle. And, what I've seen is once you know where you are in this graph and you understand where you want to be, you can start to adjust your plan and your strategy. So if you wanted to get more higher volume, how do you do that? Do you need to increase utility? Do you need to increase the functionality of your device? It might even be things external to the actual product, and more just marketing, things like that. So next slide, please. But the biggest challenge for like an early stage company around this is forecasting volume. If you're creating a truly innovative product that people have never seen before, it's very difficult to kind of forecast what your volume is going to actually be. And the second point is understanding the kind of product's price point, and what are people willing to pay? Like, what value is this product giving to someone, and what are they willing to pay for it? And they're probably the two biggest challenging things whenever you're creating a truly innovative product. And you just really have to do your best to try and get the numbers as best as possible on this at the early stage of your journey, and also iterate, chat to your customers, and always updating and figuring out, right, is this correct? Do we need to adjust our plan? Next slide, please. But also manufacturing and this kind of balance between volume and the price point, you have to optimize for something. You're not going to be able to do everything. And here's just some of the key kind of things that I used to think about, well, still think about today, actually, around what do I actually want to optimize for in my kind of product at this moment in time. The first one's speed to market. So as a startup, I think it was mentioned earlier as well, cash, how much cash do you have? What's your runway? Do you need to get sales? So you might want to optimize for speed to market. Some of the ways that you could do that is really stripping out complexity, trying to reduce risk as much as possible. Using off-the-shelf parts for kind of parts of your design that aren't, your core IP. Second one, scalability. So massive one on the volume here. said before, making 10 can be okay, but if you're making millions, maybe you want to invest in different manufacturing techniques. Automation. So if you're doing really high volumes, it might be worth putting the capital investment into like more automated factories, industrial automation. But if you're doing lower volumes, it might be better to actually look at, right, can we do more of a manual assembly process or a box build? And the last one's profit margin. So you have to make money, but should you always optimize for profit margin? And that's a really difficult one to kind of think about as well. More time, like you'll spend a lot more time in the design phase, which costs you a lot more money. You can spend a lot of time on the supply chain lead times, negotiating the best price for parts and like trying to find the best manufacturer. But depending on what you want to optimize for, if you want to optimize to try and get your product into the market as quickly as possible, get feedback and iterate quickly, then maybe you have to kind of spend a bit less time on kind of really, getting the cheapest design as you can. And that's kind of the main point here, is everything's a trade-off whenever it comes to hardware and manufacturing. You're not going to get all of these all at once, and you have to really decide what's the most important thing for the business to keep it going, and to learn as much as possible and to get money into the business. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I added some other additional thoughts because I thought, okay, this is a bit vague. I'm not really telling you exactly what it is, but the reality is, like, manufacturing and starting a small company, it really is specific to that company, that case, how much money they've raised, who they have on their team, what their core competency is, what IP do they want, where do they want to manufacture. But I put down a few other things that I think about whenever deciding on new products and what to do. And one of the questions I got from my team was, when do you start thinking about manufacturing? And that's also a really difficult one, because if you think about it too early, it can really kind of limit the potential of how innovative you can be. You want, at the early stage, if you're coming up with new designs, new things, you don't want to be constrained too much, but also you don't want to end up, if you look at it too late, you'll end up in a position where you might have a really brilliant design, but you can't actually make it, or you can make it, but you have to, come up with these really sophisticated and fancy manufacturing processes, and the capital expense is too much for the volume that you're doing at that moment in time. So yeah, always want to think about that. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. Build versus buy was mentioned earlier as well. I think the biggest thing with this is, and what I would say for this is, build the kind of core thing that you're building, your core IP, focus on, right, what do we do really well? What is kind of sets us apart from other companies, competitors, other businesses? And then where possible, use off-the-shelf parts for other aspects of your design. Really, it's about, for me, it's about trying to minimize risk as much as possible in the manufacturing process. I think early in your design phase, there's lots of risk. You're doing innovative stuff, but as you go through the journey and go further and further close to your manufacturing time, you want to try and reduce the risk, any risks of your product and your manufacturing process failing. One of the things, in-house versus outsourcing manufacturing, and I think from my perspective, it was going to be a massive task for us to bring our manufacturing in-house as a medically regulated company. So we ended up outsourcing ours. But again, this decision really depends on what you're building, the complexity of the product, what capital do you have, what skills are on your team, what are the volumes that you're planning to build, and your company size. Big one as well, quality, repeatability, and reliability. Like, this is huge, and it becomes even more important whenever you're doing higher volumes. If you need to service things, or things get damaged or broken, like, it becomes a really, really difficult kind of logistical problem to try and solve these problems, and quite costly. Regulation requirements. We're in the medical space, so there's lots and lots of different standards and testing and emissions testing and electrical safety, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But just make sure that whenever you're starting out, really understand, right, what are the requirements from a regulatory point of view that we're going to have to comply with. before you make any of these decisions around whether you're going to build versus buy, you know, outsource the manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, the last point for me on this one is managing your supply chain. Now, we initially did this ourselves because having full control over it's really good, but supply chain is not to be underestimated, especially if you're trying to optimize for speed and optimize like for time. It can take a long time to get a hardware product to market. And a lot of people will see this, that lead times of certain off the shelf, if you're buying stuff off the shelf, sometimes the parts can have really, really long lead times and things like that. So, you know, I would always say initially always manage your supply chain internally. But as you grow and as your kind of product gets out into the market and it's more stable, you know, it's always good to look at the options around getting maybe your contract manufacturer to actually manage your supply chain. And that could be quite a kind of cost effective way of doing it, depending on your team structure. Next slide, please. Yeah, another wee snippet of advice I always say is, if possible, again, depending on the type of product that you're building, but always try and build the first kind of initial units, like your pre-production units in-house. And I don't mean like just the person that's designed it. I mean anyone that's kind of involved in the product. So whether it's designers, engineers, supply chain people, this is a really, really kind of valuable task to do if you can do it, because it allows the engineers and it allows the designers to understand the complexities of actually manufacturing a product. And you get a better design at the end, because people will try and follow the instructions, the work instructions, and anything that's difficult or anything that doesn't really make sense, that's where it will all come out, and you'll say, okay, right, we actually need to make this better, or the process of doing this step and this step needs to be switched around, or can we change the design slightly, because this actually takes quite a long time to actually assemble this product. So yeah, that's a bit of advice that we did, and it really helped a lot in terms of getting the product into kind of manufacturing, and allowing you to really understand like the process and where the risks are and where you potentially may have quality challenges, and then you can, you know, redesign your process or redesign your product or minimize that as much as possible. But yeah, the main thing here is that quality is everything. You know, it's very, in our circumstances, we build our product in the UK, but we ship it to the US. And if there's issues, quality issues, it becomes really difficult to solve them, kind of based on the logistics of that. And I think, you know, even with customers and everything, you're an early stage company, you know, a lot of customers are probably, you know, taking a bit like looking at going, okay, early stage company, and you want to make sure that you deliver a quality product, and build up your reputation as a company and as a brand, that, you know, you create these things, they're reliable, they work really well, and then you can kind of scale from there. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is the last slide for me. I don't know how long I've actually got here, but this is the last slide, and I think it's probably just to summarize everything and kind of bring it all together, is at the end of the day, the very most important thing, and it goes back to one of the kind of messy in the middle slides, is you need to design and build a product that actually creates enough value that people are willing to pay for the device or the thing that you're building. And it can be challenging to kind of see that or like to understand that, but the main thing is really always chatting to the end user, letting them trial things out, letting them give you feedback, and just keep iterating as much as possible, because that's the thing. Like if you can iterate and solve real world problems with your device, then you're going to have a successful company and a successful product. Next slide, please. And that's everything for me. Thanks very much for listening, and more than happy to answer any questions in the breakout room.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Ross. And yeah, I work in the same building with BioLiberty and Ross, and I've seen their growth significant in past 3 years. It's a quite vibrant engineers you got there. And yeah, anyone have any kind of question in soft robotics, more specifically, just because it's a bit niche these days, feel free to reach out to Ross, and feel free to ask questions in the breakout room as well. And now I think we're good to go with Santiago. You all right? Yeah,
Yes.
so Santiago is from Pollen Robotics slash Hugging Face or Hugging Face slash Pollen Robotics. And he's the business development lead. And off you go.
Perfect. Let me share my screen. Just a sec. Oh, yes, there you go. Sorry, if I can have the PDF, as always, like at last, it doesn't work well. I think Milton has my PDF, or if you have it, have it.
Yeah, just give me a minute. And I think, Nicholas, if you can try, that would be easy as well. I'm just downloading it.
I can share, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm a little, maybe my profile is a bit different from other people because I'm more focused on the commercial aspect or trying to, okay, how can we partner with people, not only on business, but also like doing collaborations. Where can we try to work together to a certain aim, a certain goal? So I think it will be a little bit different, not only, so not focused that much on the manufacturing in itself, but start to like acknowledge and know the whole cycle of the manufacturing process. So my presentation is the title I put it like to guide as well a presentation, scaling robotics, some lessons that we learn on co-design, on the roadmaps that we use, and on steady growth. So if you can have the next slide, please. So I will try to go part by part, so you can try to follow me on the way we work, mostly on how do we think about when we produce a new robot or a new product and what has worked well for us. So next slide, please. So as a general intro, I mean, at Pollen Robotics, the company founded in 2016, and we built, and we have always built, open source humanoid robots or robotics solutions. Our first big robot was Reachy-1 in 2020, and now we have Reachy-2 in launching last October 2024. And mostly our robots are mainly used in AI, in data collection, and in teleoperation or research as well, and proof of concepts. So leaving that behind, a little bit of the background on our work. What we have learned on scaling and going from small and a bigger scale is like is that it has always been useful for us starting small with just a handful of units, less than 5 or 10, then going to the dozens, then starting to go on the hundreds if we can. That way, that's allowed us like a good strategy, a good how to say it, a good synergy as well within our team, and I will try to explain why. So next slide, please. So the first part is on co-designing, meaning that for us it's super important, not only because it's part of the open source philosophy on the way you work and the way that you create stuff or why you try to create science, but also in the way that we like to work as well, trying to know our customers or the future people that would like to work within our robots really well, trying to know the best, what are their needs, why haven't they found what they want in another robot or in another software or another solution, and how can we approach them in a way that it's helpful for them. And there goes co-design, because it's really important to iterate as much as possible, we think, with the feedback that you can get from a couple of people. It doesn't, we think that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have your first customers already, but try to get some people that you trust and that you care about and that you think that have a good knowledge in robotics or in product management or in the market, and try to see what they think of your robot. Because sometimes, especially the R&D team or the engineers, think they have created a super nice product. But when you have a really diverse set of people trying to see, okay, how they're going to use it, how does it work, you get so much valuable feedback that you will only get after you start selling your robot. But then when you start already selling, it's really hard to modify, as the previous speaker just told us, like in the first couple of minutes. It's really hard to, once you get 10, 20, 100 robots on the wild, to go and modify it. So it's really a nice way of just iterate a lot on the first versions before launching. So next slide, please. So there you have a picture of the Reachy-mini, the latest robot. So here, like as a recap, you have to try to understand really a lot what they want, what they need, and why they haven't found that in a robot already. Because then maybe you will find that there's another other robot that does the work really well, and then you will have like another competitor, to put it like that. That's the need that you want to fulfill in a much better way or in a much costly, efficient way, and then your product doesn't fit very nicely. And then as well with the co-design, it's always useful to have this positioning idea of your product, meaning in the whole market where your product stands in terms of the pricing, the capabilities, the target audience, the market preparedness level as well. Is it a research platform? Is it a mass market platform? How it's going to be shipped? How it's going to be bought? Several questions that will help you define what are the special or the perfect type of customer, client, or user that you want to have. So next slide, please. And then once you have that, a good way of working, at least that we use a lot here at Pollen, is the roadmap. Meaning that we try to put everything that we want to do, we want to build, we want to improve within our robots, that is shared within all our teams. So that allows us not only transparency for the whole team, but also for our customers or future customers, because we're super transparent with them on telling them, okay, from now till 1 year, this is what is going to happen, or this is what we are going to do. So next slide, please. So what I propose is always to have at least a 1 year roadmap where you have really, well, most detailed as possible. Hasn't have to go like super extremely detailed, but at least some sense of what you're going to improve or trying to improve or research in the product in itself, in the hardware, in the software part, what you can or want to do and improve in production, in support, in after sales service, in the relationships with your suppliers as well. It's not only about the product in itself, but the whole ecosystem that you're trying to create around the platform that you're going to build. And that for us, it's really nice to share them with clients and with customers. Don't be shy with that, because people really like to be involved, really like to be a partner with that and say, okay, maybe the robot as it is right now, it isn't that interesting to us, but I see that in 3 or 6 months time, you will have this development, and is a really key aspect that nobody has done it before for us. And we will really like to know more. What are you trying to do with that? How it's going to cost? And then you can deblock, then you can gain some maybe special partnerships with them, because you get this perfect customer that wants exactly one of the key features that you wanted on your roadmap. So there you gain super important feedback from that key customer that you will not get if you are not opening yourself on the comments, on the work, on the visions that other people will have on your roadmap. And that helps a lot as well to build trust and build long-term relationships, not only with your customers, but as well with suppliers, because suppliers really, sometimes it's a bit illogical to go to them and tell them something that may or may not happen. But for them, it's super nice to know as well where you're trying to go and how big your offer could go. And then you already have a detailed map showing them what it's going to look like in 1 year's time. and what has to happen to arrive at that point as well. That's an important point as well of roadmaps. You just don't only put the objectives that you want. You can also put like what will trigger these objectives to happen. For example, if you know that an investment for it to happen, you need to sell 50-30 robots, then note it out. So then you keep the motion going in your company, in your startup, and then you mentally helps you as well to know that, for example, if you go to this point, then you can start improving this part, and then you can keep the movement on and the improvement on. So next slide, please. And here it goes, like the first big issue is about the scaling. How much, how faster, like how do you handle it? So next slide, please. And for us, I mean, it's very important to monitor several things when you're trying to scale, not only in the product, but in other stuff. First one is the BOM cost. I mean, the bill of materials. Really, you have to put a lot of effort on it, not only on the current version of the robot, but also on the other similar components that, for example, if you have an issue with a motor, for example, or for a sensor that they don't have stock, or they don't have enough quantities, or I don't know, the drivers of that sensor of the motor don't work well on your architecture and you have to replace it. Okay, to know at least one other reference that you can more or less quickly change, especially when you are on the scaling phase, when you're going from 10 to 50 or to 100, because sometimes it has happened a lot to us that a supplier wasn't able to give us the product that we wanted, and then we had to do a last minute change, and maybe the pricing was super different, the lead times was super different, and we spent, I don't know, 3 months just waiting for production, where if you have done this in advance, it can greatly help you, especially if you're in a full stress mode that you don't know how you're going to do it. It's super nice to have a second option, especially for the main components. Also take a lot of acknowledge a lot the production capacity of your suppliers and how long the lead times work. And for this, we like to invest a lot of time knowing our suppliers, discussing with them, and knowing, for example, different production scenarios and how they can adapt. Because sometimes we tend to forget that if, for example, in the good case that you want to go from 50 to 200 in 1 year, you will say, okay, that's perfect news. You will go to your supplier and he will say yes immediately. Maybe he will say yes, but he will tell you, okay, I need 6 times or a whole year just to put the line of production in March in way. And I have to do engineering tests with our teams to improve, to adapt your product to our production lines. We have to do quality tests, and all of these things take a lot of time. And also they require sometimes a lot of investment from your side in terms of finance that you have to be aware of, because sometimes you think that just selling more is better and it's easier and it helps improve like the lead times, but sometimes doing these jumps actually it costs more of the money, and then the financial results you will see with that is actually at the end point. For example, if you're starting from 50 and going to 250, well, you will see the results as where you already sold the 200 units. You will not see them on the first units because you will be paying the investments to actually jump on the scaling, on the production capabilities. Then as well, it's super useful for us to always look at the documentation, the quality test, the certification, everything that can improve the support, long-term support of your customers. Sometimes we have the tendency to just do the documentation, do the guidelines, and just forget it. And then you improve the software or the product, and then you forgot all the certification, the tests, the quality test, the documentation just left behind. And then you will have a lot of support issues because it's old, because it's not updated, or the customer doesn't understand it really well. And that leads us to the last point on this part, is on support and after sales insights that you will have. This is a quite important point that also we tend to forget when manufacturing, is that the people that do support and after sales have a really strong insight about how people are using the robots or your product, how people, how many issues are they encountering, what type of issues, if they like it, what do they think, what could be improved. And it's a super nice source of information that sometimes we tend to leave behind. So I will really encourage you to, if you already have somebody is going to take care of the support, to really include them in the whole cycle. And as a general like objective, scaling is not about producing more. It's actually just to building the ecosystem that you have around the production, meaning especially the suppliers, the shipping capabilities that you have, your own teams as well. I mean, if you have the good luck to just have a big order and then it doubles or triples your production capabilities, it's not only the production, but as well how your team can adapt to that, and if they are able to adapt, because sometimes especially the burnout scenarios happen during these times when you are super happy because you have big orders, but at the same time you're seeing that your team is not responding well because there is so much work to do and everything has to be done at the same time. So also take care of your company. So next slide, please. And then just moving on to final part, like once you have a steady growth, what strategy can you kind of follow from there? Some general, I know, let's call it work guidelines that could help you, or at least have helped us in our way. So next slide, please. So as I said at the beginning, we try to do a steady scaling that is really driven by the customers, by customers' commitment. We are, in that sense, we are quite safe in the way that we don't put a lot of investments or efforts if we are not sure that there is a demand or attraction, as we like to call it, out there. So for example, our path is more like this. It goes from 0, then from 10, then to 30 robots, then to 60, 100, 250, instead of going to, I don't know, from 0 to 10 to 500. Because sometimes overscaling, you step a lot of important steps from improvements on your team, improvements on the product, improvements on the relationship that you have with your suppliers. While doing that, you will just skip it. And at the end, you will find that there are a lot of issues. And now you just have, instead of 30, you have, I don't know, 500 robots that need to be corrected. You have a much larger team that is much harder to change, to train, to put yourself together in the same way when you were, I don't know, 5 than now that you are 30. So for us, scaling in a responsible way has given us really good results. Sometimes, yes, it can mean in a couple of sales lost, because sometimes it will arrive to you that people want to buy your robots or your solutions right away. But at the end, we have seen that it's really the best way to do it, or at least it's the least stressful way to do it, and the one that guarantees you the better quality as well. For example, one of the things that we try to do to cope with these bottlenecks that sometimes you will have, I don't know, if you want to go from 30 to 100 and you don't have yet the production capabilities, is that in the meantime, while doing the scale jump, we do hardware weeks where, for example, all the hardware people, the mechatronics and the engineers come at once at the office and they just start working on the production. They leave what they were doing and they just start producing as a technical production people. And so that allows us to quickly catch up if we have any bottlenecks or any longer lead times, and as well to see as all the people is together working at the same objective, to see if there are any other improvements or errors on the production that could help us in the future. And that was a really good strategy that we have always implemented, and we keep doing it. Every a couple of months, we do a hardware week. We gather everyone together, and then every time that we do it, we find a lot of stuff to improve, to reduce errors, to do different tests. And at the end, it's super nice to see as well everybody together just building the robots. So next slide, please. So to end a little bit on my talk, what we have learned, like to recap the main stuff, is that clients shape as much the robot and the product as we do. We like to be really community driven in that sense. That we, for example, our robot at the beginning of the Reachy one, it was just an arm. Then people told us it would be really nice to have a camera, so then we built a head. And other people told us it would be super nice to have a torso and another hand. And then we have the torso with the two hands. And then other people told us, okay, now we need navigation. So then we built the mobile base. And from there, we started from a really small type of robotic solution. And now we have like a full humanoid robot that started really on the community base or community, how to put it, pushed in a sense. Then it's super important to have a supplier relationships, because at the end it will be strategic for your customers, not only for you, but your customers as well, because it could be a source of marketing. We see that scaling is more of a journey, not just only like super big steps, but rather a continuation of a roadmap that step by step you always trying to improve. And then we support a lot the community and the open source, because we see that it's a multiplier for the value creation, not only for your product, but the whole interaction that they can provide to you. That's it for me, and I hope to have a lot of questions when doing the breakout sessions.
That's brilliant, Santiago. Right on time. Thank you. And the presentation was really good. And yeah, 5 years ago when I started building robots, Pollen Robotics, Reachy was one of my first projects that I always wanted to build, but ended up with not building it. But still, the difference between back and now is the open source community and the ecosystem that you guys are trying to create is what quite important. And I really appreciate your effort and time. Like you mentioned, transparency is good for everyone. That made a lot of sense. All right, cool. Now we have Dr. Adil from Zionic. He's the founder and really interesting guy. And I got to know him. I saw him first time in Shark Tank like years and years ago. And yeah, pretty much a lot of attendees might have seen him as well. And off to you, Adil.
Yes, and can you hear me and see my screen okay? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can? Okay, great. Great. And let me swap that. All right, well, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. So I'm Dr. Adil Akhtar. I'm the CEO and founder of Psionic, and we develop advanced bionic limbs for humans and robots. And this talk is kind of going to go over the journey of how we started as students and then went to manufacturing our hands and now at scale in particular. And for me, I've wanted to build bionic limbs ever since I was 7 years old. My parents are from Pakistan, and I was visiting, and that was the first time I met someone missing a limb. She was my age, missing her right leg and using a tree branch as a crutch. And that's what inspired me to go in this field. So I went to Loyola Chicago for undergrad, got a bachelor's in biology, a master's in computer science, taught there for a couple of years, and then went to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, got another master's in electrical and computer engineering, PhD in neuroscience. I left medical school to do this because this was a bit more fun than finishing medical school. But while I was doing my PhD, we started to 3D print our own hands, and we started with open source designs that we found online, which was a great place to start. And then we started developing our own designs that we open sourced ourselves. And in the summer of 2014, we got the chance to work with a nonprofit organization called the Range of Motion Project, whose mission is to provide prosthetics to those who can't afford them, primarily in Guatemala and Ecuador. And we met our very first patient on a trip to Ecuador, Juan Suquillo, who had lost his left hand 35 years prior due to a landmine explosion. And this picture shows the first time we hooked him up to one of those 3D printed hands, which we internally call Mark II, is the second generation of the Ability hand. And we couldn't get it to work. And this is a much longer story of 2 weeks of all-nighters in trying to make this work. But the following week, in front of international news stations, we, by a lot of luck, were able to get him to control the hand. And in front of these international news stations, he said he felt as though a part of him had come back. And that was because he made a pinch with his left hand for the first time in 35 years. And that's when we realized that if I stay in academia, this just ends up as a journal paper. If we want everyone to feel the same way that Juan did, we had to commercialize this technology. And so that's when Psionic was born. And so over the last 10 years, we have gone through actually nine and a half different prototypes of the ability hand. And you can see the very first one, the first two of them, right, were actually based on open source designs. The very first one was based on a humanoid robot called InMove. You could 3D print for like $1,000. The second one was designed by Open Bionics, which is a company out in the UK. And then we modified it with our own electronics. And Mark 3, 4, and 5 were our first designs that we open sourced ourselves. And then 6, 7, and 8. 7 was the first one to introduce carbon fiber into the palms. 6 was the first one to have fully silicone fingers that you could actually smash with a hammer and they would survive the impact. And then Mark 8 was the first one that we released publicly. So that was the first one we got covered or registered with the FDA and covered by insurance in the US. So you can see that this took quite a bit of a journey to get there, and we were iterating very quickly. And so to reiterate what was said in some of the previous talks, customer discovery, like getting to know your clients very early on and having them be part of the process is extremely critical. And that informed a lot of the design decisions and manufacturing decisions that we made as we had gone through this progression. And then the latest version of the hand, so this is Mark 9.5, is the hand that I'm holding here too. So you can see me, waving to you with a power grip right now. But the fingers are flexible; they can survive impact. We took a soft robotics approach, very much like Ross did, but with a motorized finger inside the hands and flexible finger joints. And one thing too that you can't underscore here, and that we've got to bring to light very early on, is that storytelling for us had been pretty important since the very beginning of the company. And we knew that in order for us to really build brand equity and get buy-in from a lot of our end users, both on the human side and the robotic side, that we wanted to be able to tell the stories of our end users, show what they're capable of, show what the robots that our hands are being attached to are capable of as well. And so we have a pretty robust marketing strategy where we show videos of things that people wouldn't necessarily expect that robot hands could do, both on the human side and on the robot side, that highlight specific features of our hand. So it's the fastest bionic hand on the market. Fingers close in 0.2 seconds. It's water resistant. It's super light and strong. It can hold like 140 pounds maximum, though we don't usually recommend more than 100 pounds. And it's the first hand to give users touch feedback. So we have pressure sensors in the fingertips, the finger pads, 2 on the outside, 2 on the inside, and the users can feel it through vibration. On the robotic side, we can stream all of that over an API that allows you to read all 30 of the touch sensors and do position, velocity, and torque control over all 6 of the brushless DC motors that are in here. And then most importantly, on the human side, we got the hand covered by Medicare in the United States. And so to put that in context, that expanded access from 10% of patients who could afford it, and that was only if you were in the military or if you had a workplace accident, to 75%. And that's what we're all about, making the most advanced bionic devices that are more accessible than ever. And just to show some of these like videos that I was mentioning and I was talking about that we use for our marketing, it really, a lot of it started with this one. So this next one was one of our first users of the ability hand, who's the para-triathlete national champion from 2018 and 2019, Dan St. Pierre. 3 minutes after he was first fitted with the hand, someone threw him a water ball and he was able to catch it.
Are you ready? That's it right here. Oh!
And so we were all pretty excited that he was able to do this. And so I posted this on Reddit, and someone had commented that this is like the dude perfect for bionics. And I was just like, the dude perfect for bionics, that's brilliant. And what could we do to kind of just show these, show off what's like really, really cool about our bionic hand and what's unique about it in ways that both the general population would find to be really cool, but also if a potential end user or a clinician sees it, they're like, I didn't even know bionic hands could even do this before. And so we, studied like a bunch of the top engineering YouTube channels, from like Mark Rober to the Hacksmith to Stuff Made Here. And we decided to come up with ideas that would both show off the features of our hand that, again, were unique, but it would appeal to both the end users and clinicians, that they would be like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Bionic, I didn't realize bionic hands could do it. But then the general public would see it and also be wowed by it. And so we decided things like I challenged Dan St. Pierre to an arm wrestling match. And so this is me arm wrestling against Dan St. Pierre at the State Farm Center at the University of Illinois. And he ended up beating me. So I got to start working out a bit more to get my revenge on him. But we also did challenges like to show off the durability of the hand with flaming board breaking. So this is our first user in the US, Sergeant Garrett Anderson, who lost his hand in Iraq in 2005, punching through 3 wooden boards set on fire, right? And the thing is that we're not expecting that our users would really do this on a daily basis, where they would like punch through 3 wooden boards set on fire. But the point is that if it can survive that, then it should survive your activities of daily living, or things that you might find in the workplace, where like if you accidentally like fall on the hand, or like jam it into a door, or like hit it against the side of a table really hard, that you can have confidence that it's not going to break. But we also show things that just activities of daily living that our users and our robots can do as well. And so this was our user experience specialist at the time, Annika Berlin, showing all sorts of different tasks that she could do as part of a day.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt. Just to keep it a little bit more on point about
Yes.
the actual manufacturing.
Yes.
And that would be great for this specific audience. And
yeah,
some of this might be covered in the Q&A, but since we've got so many people here interested in that topic, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the thing is that where I'm trying to get at with that too is that what we're doing on the manufacturing end is dictated a lot by our user needs, right? That our user needs are things that they're doing on a daily basis that require different types of potentially like new forms of manufacturing in particular that allow and enable these activities to happen in particular. So for example, we had to really kind of take advantage of different types of manufacturing in order to make this happen. So for example, we have 3D printed finger bones inside each one of our digits that are made of rubber and nylon, essentially, that allow for the soft robotics to kind of like handle these types of impacts. And we didn't really have a lot of funding when we started, and so we had to be really scrappy in terms of how we would manufacture these devices in particular. And so we leveraged a lot of things like low-cost 3D printing, and with soft robotics, we were able to 3D print our molds and then inject silicone, like low-cost 2-part silicones into that mold, and then really make the hand more robust than anything that was out there. And especially when you're doing things like low-volume manufacturing, you can't really spend a lot of capital on like large injection molding runs or custom machine steel designs and things like that. So by leveraging like low-cost manufacturing options like 3D printing, it really enabled us to really iterate really quickly so that we could kind of meet these user needs of like the robustness and durability, as well as incorporating things like touch feedback in the sensors and everything like that that we were putting into the hands itself. So on the robotics side, we needed to we get the question often of like whether we needed to manufacture separately for robots versus humans. And one of the things that we wanted to really drive forward was that it's the same hand that goes on humans that goes on robots in particular. And and so the only difference really for us is that we have a different wrist mount that we manufacture specifically for the robotic side that has 4 bolt circles, M5 screws that go into a bolt circle that you can put on your robots in particular. And this was really important because we were optimizing our manufacturing line specifically for like this quick disconnect that we have on the clinical side. But we wanted to make sure that we could still be compatible with all the robots, and especially the booming market that we're seeing on the robotic side in particular. And so this is NASA's humanoid astronaut robot that's using our hand, but it's the same hand that again is going on the human side as well. And the nice thing about this was that as we could scale our manufacturing on the robotic side, then it would subsidize the cost further for our human side as well too. So we were able to kind of leverage the scale that we could see on the robotic side in the manufacturing in order to really capture both markets for our clinical users and our robotics users at the same time. And so we just moved to a new facility at the beginning of this year. And for the last year or so, we were able to make about 20 hands per month. And then by redesigning some of the features and putting in processes in place, we were able to scale that manufacturing in the last like 5 months from 20 hands a month to 120 hands a month. And we want to get that up to 200 hands a month, so that we're going to be at about 1,000 for this year. And then next year, the goal is to make 10,000 hands per year with our next generation hand. And a lot of that has to do not just with the way you design the hand itself, but also just the processes that you have in place. There's a lot of processes that sound like they're might be a lot of work up front, but like doing things like ISO 9001 or ISO 1345 and implementing lean manufacturing methods. Sure, when you're at low volumes and you're just trying to get product market fit, it's probably not necessary and might slow you down. But as you go from that 0 to 1 stage, which is the product market fit stage, to then scaling from like 1 to 10 and then 10 to 100, having those processes in place really are going to be critical for doing things like quality control and making sure that when you have, like, instead of just having 10 hands at a time, but now you have 1,000 hands, that you're going to be very consistent across your builds, across those different hands, and that you'd be able to scale your product without scaling your problems, right? And that's pretty critical on that front as well too. And so yeah, and things like where quality really makes a difference here too is that when you're doing these end uses, right? I mean, you need to be able to do very precise tasks with your robots, including like putting car parts together, right? And things like different household tasks and everything as well too. So with that, I'll skip through a bunch of these and just talk straight up too, and we can talk more in the breakout session as well too. But one of the major points of this, of what I'm saying here too, is that we want to be able to scale responsibly. So by having these processes in place, and as you start going to these larger scaling manufacturings, you need to start answering questions like, do you go to contract manufacturer? Do you do low volume manufacturing in-house? And for us, the way we're kind of navigating it is that we plan on doing low volume manufacturing in-house. And then when we get to a scale of making like 10,000 or 100,000 hands of this, we will outsource that to a contract manufacturer. And as we start making newer products, then we're going to move that to our low volume manufacturing in-house in San Diego. So when we move to like wrists, elbows, knees, ankles, etc. as well. So I will stop there, and that way we can have more time for discussion in the breakout sessions.
That's great. Thank you, Adil. And it was really interesting to know, like, pretty much everyone can start from scratch or start from an open source project to scale it up all the to, whatever level that you are in. And the numbers that you're talking about scaling up is like really brilliant, and good luck with that. And yeah, with that, I think Christine will be sharing a quick input from you participants, from the attendees. If you can scan this QR code and join, we have very quick, super easy questions to ask. And yeah, just let us know if you can't access. We'll share you a link as well.
Yeah, because we're in a webinar, it's difficult for us to collect individual feedback. So if you're part of the audience, get your phone out if you're not already on this as part of the phone. If you're already on your phone, then just go to that web link. And then what we'll do is we'll just collect some of your thoughts on topics that we want to discuss, and just have a bit of a better understanding of who actually is in the webinar, and kind of what kind of things you want to discuss. Okay, so we'll let a few more people scan this.
And also I have shared the link if you can't join through the QR code.
And the idea here is that we all see the data in real time, including all of you who are filling it in. And this is just so that we understand and make sure that we're pitching the Q&A to the right level. And so this question is just really to understand who's working where, who's already in robotics companies, if there's people here who are already working, for example, in manufacturers who are interested, or if there's a high percentage of students who are thinking about starting a robotics company but aren't at the position of doing it yet. And there's a couple of veteran robotics people here, which is nice. Okay. And let's go to the next question. So it's just understanding the stage that your company's in. So here what we're talking about is, are you actually making robots yet? And it's all about scaling. Are you haven't even started yet? Are you making things for the first time? And this again will help us with some of the topics in the breakout. Okay. So these are some of the topics that we can focus in on: designing for scale, more about managing series production. Is it just about where do I get started? How do I know who to work with? Also things like funding, compliance, or things that are just nothing to do with manufacturing and to do with other topics. Okay, so quite a balance of different things here. Okay, and then what are the biggest challenges that you're facing right now? And this might not be relevant for everyone, but whether those are very specific to the manufacturing or are actually some of the stuff around it, like the team or and the funding, or whether it's very specific design issues or process growth. And okay.
Looks like a common problem.
Yeah. And it's quite often that we see a balance, so that's fine. And then just just for a quick question is whether you're a RAS member or not. And for those who aren't, you can of course go to the website and do it. They have student memberships, and also on the RAS website, there's also a whole load of different options for volunteering. So Harry is a volunteer, I'm a volunteer. The speakers are all volunteer for their time for today. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved. So feel free to have a look there. And for this one, this is you can just type your topics in. So we suggested a few in a couple of slides ago about things that people want to specifically cover. But if there's anything that you're more interested in yourself, then feel free to type something in, and then we'll see the different topics come up. So if all of our speakers are looking at some of these topics, then you can pick some of these specifically. Okay, Nick, this is the last slide that we have. So do you want to just talk the logistics for going into the breakout rooms, you or Harry?
Yeah, sure. So there'll be 3 breakout rooms with individual speakers, and I think I'll be along with Santiago and Adil. You have Christian with you, and Rupendra will be with Ross. And yes, pretty much good.
Yeah, so when I start the breakout room sessions, you'll be able to choose between breakout room 1, 2, or 3. And when you click that, you'll enter the breakout room. So Christine, is now a good time to start the session?
Yep, so just to say that there'll be 2 breakout rooms. So you can join one, and after 15, 20 minutes, we'll close that room. And then that will give you an opportunity to join a second room. And the idea is that with just a smaller number of people, there'll be more chances to actually have a kind of more of a conversation. Okay? Yeah, whenever you're ready, Nick.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that was a little bit of confusion there. So in the end, we got people to write their comments into the chat and read it out. We weren't able to unmute, or the unmuting process didn't work very well. So I'm not sure how successful everyone else's was, but the idea is that we'll do another breakout session and see how that goes. Nick, I'm not sure where you're at. breakout rooms. Okay. I'm just wondering. There seems to be quite a lot of similar questions coming through. Do we want to just all stay together and take one or two final questions before we close? Yeah. Okay. So anyone who's if everyone can still see the chat, we had a couple of questions on investment, which isn't really about manufacturing, but I just want to make the point that IEEE also does a lot with IEEE entrepreneurship. IEEE RAS does, and we're going to try and have some sort of investor hardware summit at ICRA in Vienna. So watch that space, and we'll see if we can help get a bit more funding for the robotics startups. I think there was quite a lot of questions around the make-buy, specifically the make-buy decision. So maybe you could all just try and do a simple 1 or 2 sentence answer to that about what did you consider to be your core competencies that you decided to invest in versus ones that you bought in when it came to the manufacturing decisions. Over to Ross. Or we can't hear you. You're unmuted, Ross. We can hear you. Oh, we both did it then. Okay, try again.
Oh, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, it was locked there. Yeah, quickly. There's no easy answer really, but I think it's around volume. So we try to keep the core thing, like, so something that we're building, like a core part of our design and where our intellectual property is, we would build that and do the manufacturing for that. But you can't build everything, like, and using off-the-shelf parts for certain aspects actually makes a lot of sense, especially if there's availability of that. So I think you can go the full kind of side of it and be like, you want to build your own custom screw or whatever, like, that's probably pointless. Like, there's lots of like screws and things out there, so I think it depends, but I would always say, like, try and keep your core, like your core thing, whatever it is. Ours is like pneumatics and like the soft robotic side, and then other things, like we're not designing pneumatic pumps. Like, we buy that because there's companies that build pneumatic pumps and that's their specialty. So
thank you, Ross. Okay, let's see. Santiago, you want to go?
Yeah, sorry, Christine, can you repeat actually the question? I got a bit lost.
It was about your core competency, your make-buy decision, about what did you consider to be your core things that you decided to build in-house?
I will go with the whole platform architecture, especially on the really low level on the firmware, because that's something that people, it's quite hard to do, and especially to connecting everything together, the sensors, the motors, the actuators, the whole platform, and making it happen. And people actually don't want to quite go there. And then the general idea, the general concept behind your robot, that's something that people can modify it, but the general aspect of your robot and where you want to go, for example, in our case, is more of a research robot. Then you go there.
Thank you. Thank you. And Adil, you want to unmute yourself? Or I can do it. Yeah. Okay, go.
Awesome. Yeah, so we do all the assembly in-house. We did all the design work on like the finger drivetrain cases. So like drivetrain cases, finger assemblies, materials, the fabrics, the carbon fiber. We did all of that stuff ourselves in-house. We're very vertically integrated, and that really helps in iterations for new designs as well.
Okay, and then there's a great question in from Rupendra. which is about when do you stop iterating and when do you know it's time to go to the next one. I loved the line that you had, which was scale your products, not your problems. So how do you know if you're going to be scaling too many problems or not? Adil, you want to touch on that either with an anecdote or just...
Yeah, honestly, at some level, you don't know, because you don't know until it kind of happens. And at some level, we never stop iterating, and we do have to make decisions on based on timing, like how long is it going to take to implement a particular iteration of the hand. If it's something that like takes like 6 months to a year, then we might release that in the next generation of the hand, as opposed to something that might take like 3 weeks to implement instead. That and then that's not as disruptive to the manufacturing line. We might add that in very much sooner. So a lot of it just depends on like how long and how many resources you'll have to dedicate to that iteration. Again, we don't stop iteration ever. It's just that it depends on whether it's going to go in the next hand or the current one.
Yeah, and yeah, and again, it depends on the type of products that you have. Sometimes you have change notices and you actually have to document and use up your stock and then you improve it. And as engineers, we are always know the faults and we will always be wanting to make the next improvement. But actually, there's practicalities in manufacturing, and sometimes you're shipping something that you know is not the best it could be, and we have to just kind of deal with it. Santiago, you have a whole open source community to work with. How do you know the answer to this question?
Yeah, so actually it's quite funny because for us, I mean, sometimes we have good, well, I know, really good feedback, and sometimes it's like, I know, we created the Reachy-mini robot and people just the first week were like, okay, where's the arm? Can we have legs? Can we have everything? I mean, for us, it will be mainly know your limits. I mean, keep to a little bit on your main idea, where you're trying to go with the robot, and then you can see if the feedback that you get is actually sticks a little bit to what you were trying to get with your robot or your idea. And then as well, iterate as much as you can, I will say, as much as you have money for, because usually at some points, well, you just have to start selling something so you can be sustainable, especially for your investors. So be also transparent to your investors as well, telling them, okay, in 1 year, in half a year, I will have a project. I will iterate first, but by this date, I will end my iteration. I will have like the first version. And it's also helpful as well for the team, because if you never stop iterating, sometimes it gets a little bit tiring because you're always trying to adapt and modify. And sometimes it's nice to just have, I know, 6 months where you just produce, and then you learn to produce better what you're trying to build.
That's an excellent point, because I think there's a lot from the design stage, but you learn a huge amount by just making and sending. And there's different engineering challenges, different problems that need to be solved with stock management and making of parts and even variability part to part. So I think it's important that you learn the whole cycle, not just stay in that first cycle and never quite make it beyond. So excellent point, Santiago. Thank you. Ross, I'm coming to you.
Yeah, no, I think the rest of you guys make really good points. I think a lot of the time in your company, it's more kind of the strategy of the business and like other aspects. If you have enough money and enough engineers, everyone wants to make the product perfect. But I think thinking about, what's the minimum viable product? What can we get done, shipped, that's, good quality, and we can start to learn and iterate is the main thing. You look historically at any hardware product and stuff, and it's rarely the first iteration of the product that's like the best. It's, they send it out, they iterate. I think was that a thing the other day? SpaceX Falcon. Like, have you seen that photo of the very first rocket versus the one that they have now? And like, they would have had loads of uncertainties and things, but they would have just had to make decisions. And okay, right, we're going to go with this. We're going to, we know that there's challenges, there's issues, but we'll iterate on it, and then just keep kind of putting out new products once the time's right. You can't update. It's very difficult in the medical space, with kind of bionic hands and stuff as well. It's very difficult in the medical space to like incrementally change things depending on what it is. So like, you might say, right, well, we know that we have these 5-10 things, but we'll bundle them into like the next version of the device. do all the testing and stuff. So yeah, it's difficult, but I think from my perspective, you never really know, how valuable the product is until you actually build it and you have an idea, but once you get it out there, you can start iterating and build in flexibility into your designs as well. I think Christine, you mentioned that in your talk. It's like try and build in flexibility. So if oh, they might ask for this, or we might add this feature, try and build that in at the start as well. But yeah, not an easy thing to do.
No. And I want to congratulate every single person who's in the call, because you have picked a really, really challenging career. And developing robots is one thing, and then making them, maintaining them, and delivering them at scale is something else. So you are at the cusp, and this whole industry is going to be so different from where it is now in 1 year's time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time. So this is also extremely exciting. There's very few other industries out there that are going to be moving this fast with so many interesting high impact products that we're all looking forward to the journey that we're on. Okay, I'm going to turn over to Harry, because we've kind of got 5 minutes left to decide how we use it and how we close out.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think Ronit has some question, but yeah, I'll just leave him to just type if you can. We can just quickly go through it if time permits as well. But yeah, great presentations. Thank you, speakers. And starting on from Ross, the very key important points that's still running in my mind are about the quality and the importance of the supply chain, which we kind of like pretty much a lot of people underestimate in the beginning, but then quickly realize when they start to scale up their product. And also, but the quality is what matters in robotics. Like anyone can provide, or not anyone, I would say, but anyone who have money can provide any kind of robotic service or solutions, but always maintaining it and making it as a reproducible ones and sticking on to the quality, not just to the hardware, software, but also from the very scratch, maintaining the documents is also vital, like Santiago mentioned. And yeah, Santiago, from the importance of ecosystem that you covered upon was really, really good. And that's something which I always try to speak to other people's. They always need to, like every kind of robotics people, let them be engineers, developers, or just business oriented guys or management people. Everyone should be in some kind of social connection, and creating an ecosystem is basically was really a vital solution to move forward, I guess. And so on with Adil's presentation talking about scaling up. Like it was really inspiring to start from an open source project to scaling up to thousands, hundreds and thousands of robotic arm right now is like quite challenging, and that's quite inspiring as well. And yeah, we got a quick last question. A big issue often doing iterative work on medical robots is that the regulators require extensive documentation. How to deal with it? I think this can be for Ross and Adil. If you guys can quickly answer, we can go on with the another last question and wind up. Anyone can go first. We can't hear you. Sorry, Adil. Oh, you're trying to, all right.
Oh, I'm unmuted. I think
Right.
probably mine's our robotic hands are a bit different because we use pneumatic air pressure, and it's more to do with the shape of the bladder. I'm just looking at the question. Yeah, linear actuator server. Yeah, it's probably more on the kind of part prosthetic side than mine, I think.
And Adil, I think she's still trying to unmute. Can you try and, oh, there you go.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so with respect to the medical robotics and extensive documentation, one of the things that I had mentioned was that We started with a smaller subset that allows to be a class 1 device, like an FDA registered class 1 device in the US that really shortened our time to market in particular before we started going into more complex things. We're looking into doing implanted electrodes that will be a class 3 device that's going to be a much longer time horizon. But in order to do that, you need to have the medical stuff put in place and you need to have much more funding. So a lot of these sales that we get from the hand is being used to fund those types of things. So it all depends on what your business goals are. In particular, if you're starting with a more complex project, you're going to need more funding up front. But if you can kind of like scale back the product itself to something that can get to a product or get to market quicker, then that will help accelerate this stuff. In terms of like the questions being asked about like how our fingers move and things like that, there are like videos and we've got patents on it that you can see exactly how the fingers work. It's a 4-bar linkage mechanism, and we've got open source designs that have that too. So feel free to like follow up with me or go on our website and you can find that information.
Well, that's brilliant. And yes, feel free to reach towards any of the speakers or even to me or Christine if you guys have any other specific questions. And we hope we'll be having more of these sessions in the future as well. Or if not, we'll be definitely having some booths or workshops in upcoming events in person at ROSCon, ICRA, and a few other top events and conferences. So hope you guys all enjoyed, and thank you all for joining. I think we can close out just 2 minutes before the